everybody, welcome back to Taji's World of Books and welcome to a big series recommendation video. Hey guys, so welcome back. So I'm getting comfortable because I got a lot to talk to you about today. I have been off not recording because I wanted to get through all of the books in the series because I wanted to do it in one video. And I thought about breaking it up into two parts and I just thought that doesn't work. So I'm gonna do it in one video. So without further ado, let's talk about it. So the series that I'm going to be talking to you about that I'm super excited to review is the Tiffany Reisz, and this is her Original Sinners series, and it is fantastic. Let me first start off by saying this about the original series. It's really divided in two parts. The first four books are the Red Years, or the Red Queen, and then the last 5 books are the White Years. And then there's a series of short stories and novellas that are kind of peppered throughout. It is recommended, and I'm going to put in the description box below. I've researched extensively the way to read these without having any spoilers, because you would think that the White Years, because the White Years technically occur before the Red Years. The White Years happen, then the Red Years is kind of like the tail end, but the way she tells the story is we are introduced into the series at the Red Years, and the White Years fill in all the blanks of these stories that we've heard about in the Red Years, but we didn't get the details. Now we get them in the details. So they are not in chronological order. You would think you could read them the other way and you can't. So I have read extensively on how to read these. I put it in the description box below. If you want to read them in the way that I'm telling you. And then she recommends after you read the big books, the main books in the Red Years and the White Years, then you can go on to read the short stories and the novellas. And they tell you, oh, this occurs 18 months after the end of the Siren, or this occurs 1 year after the end of the Angel, for example. And so you know where to pepper it in, but it still has to be read at the end for whatever reason. All right, so let me say this. I'm going to give you a couple like little, predecessor things, and then we'll get into each book. So this series is, oh my gosh, it's so powerful. I'm so sad. I'm have tears, having to leave this world. I loved these characters so much. This is one of, oh my God, I love this series. It is so good. It is classified as an erotic romance. And it is about BDSM, and it's about BDSM to the next level, that you've not even, there is a character in this series that is an absolute sadist. He is a sadist. He is not evil, but he's a sadist. And what that means is he likes to inflict pain, and he cannot perform, and he cannot get an erection, and he cannot, he just can't do it unless he is inflicting pain. And he involves himself in a relationship with others that are masochists, that are true masochists, that want to receive pain. And there's that line that blurs between, what's your hard limit and where and how far will you allow me to take it before I can actually physically harm you in a bad way and not in a good way. So in these books, you hear a lot about the good hurt versus the bad hurt. So there is a masochist, a sadist, a masochist, and then other characters that are actually into BDSM, and then some characters that are not. Okay, so the 3 main characters that the story sort of revolves around, they're the epicenter, and then everything kind of goes out from there, is Siren, and then Nora, or Eleanor, or Elle, depending on who you're talking to. They're going to call her different things, and then Kingsley. Okay, those are the 3 main characters. And then, like I said, there are secondary characters and other characters that get books and get information, but it comes later. And this series is not for the faint of heart, because you are going to love these characters. You're going to hate these characters. You're going to be pissed off at these characters. You're going to be sad for them. You're going to be like, this is bullshit. I don't understand this. This is not okay. You can't do that. And then later you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I completely understand. I misunderstood you. I didn't get it. I didn't see it. You're going to laugh with these characters. You're going to cry with these characters. You're going to feel the gamut of emotion. Every book. So a lot of the books that we read or I read, have a lot of angst in them, and they're like overly angsty, and there's a lot of drama, and there's a lot going on, and it's fast paced, and it's like, you know, and all that. And I love it. I'm here for every minute of it. These particular books are not like that. These books are a steady storytelling of events. You see characters together, but you want to understand, how did you guys get together? What is your backstory? And then somebody kind of tells you the story of what happened with them, but it's not the full story. So you think you get a picture of it because you only get it from Nora's perspective. Then you get it from Kingsley's perspective. And you're like, well, damn. And then you get Soren's perspective, and you're like, oh, holy hell, I thought I knew it all, and now I didn't. So it's a subtle building of relationships and rapports and development of characters. And each one of these characters goes through significant arcs, but their arcs that they go through are through pain and suffering and sadomasochism and BDSM and losing, loss, gaining, having things torn away from you in order for you to grow and learn. And so it's almost like these characters were stretched and pulled and tugged, and like room was made for growth, but it wasn't, it was hard fought. And each and every one of these characters don't get to the place that they get to, that they ultimately end in this beautiful, glorious place easily. Each one of these characters were taken through it, and you were there for every step of it. And when I say that these series are fantastic, oh my gosh, like you can see, like I'm getting emotional just thinking about them, thinking about what they went through, thinking about the love that they share, thinking about the pain that they share, thinking about the hate that they had for one another, the anger, the frustration, the sacrifice, like really, you know, in fantasy books, like I love fantasy books so much, right? Because it's like one character is going to sacrifice all of their happiness to save the world. And it seems so artificial, and it seems like I would never freaking, I'm not giving up my chance at happiness to like save like whatever. Like sometimes I don't buy it, and I see it and I understand it. But in these instances, when you see somebody that you love giving up something that they've worked, and they tell a story in these books about, you know, and I forget the adage, but it's this old story, and you guys will know what I'm talking about, where the husband loved his wife so much that he loved her long hair. He absolutely loved it. And so he wanted her to, you know, have clips, beautiful clips for her long hair. So he bought her, he sold something of his to buy her these beautiful clips. And she, in turn, wanted him to have something, and I can't remember what it was she wanted him to have. And so she cut her hair to buy him the thing that she wanted. And so when they presented, because they sacrificed the thing that they loved so much for one another, and so when they present the items, she no longer has her long hair to wear the clips, and he no longer has whatever she sold her hair for to have that. And so that story or adage is very reflective of the series, where there's true sacrifice and true giving up of things that you love in order to make sure that the person that you love most has what they need, or they don't sacrifice something that they love for you when you know that they will be miserable as a result of that. So that's the setup for that. So the first book in the series is called The Siren. And The Siren is, and all of these books are on Audible. They are on Libby. You can find them in audiobook form. And before I get into this, also you can tell that Tiffany Reisz has a foothold in the BDSM community, and you learn a lot about sadism, sadomasochism. You learn a lot about safe words. You learn a lot about playrooms. You learn a lot about dominatrix. You learn also, you know, about hard limits. And like, she writes it from a truly authentic place. And when you start to hear about these things, what you hear here and where you end up over here is like, it's almost like you're in a different universe. It's a different place, okay? So here we are introduced to Nora, and Nora is a writer. She's an erotic romance writer, and she lives with a guy named Wes. And Wes is like a young 20-something-year-old guy from Kentucky with this southern drawl, like it, but he's very like, you know, he's just a young guy. Like, he's cute, and he's cute as all get out. And she has hired him to be her assistant. And so when we are introduced to Nora, Nora has, she sends her manuscripts into a publishing house, and, you know, they edit and work on it and basically tell her what she needs to do. And then she's got, you know, so much of an amount of time to get out her manuscripts. And in this particular instance, she sends in her manuscript, and her author, or her, not her author, her publishing house basically says, you need to work with a new editor, and you need to follow, he's the best in the business. His name is Zach. You're going to be working with him, and you have to do what he says in order to make these last few books like fantastic, because your readers are really wanting it. And so we start to learn her story from her interactions with Zach. And Zach comes into her life, and Zach is like a hard ass, no nonsense kind of guy. And he's like, listen, I'm not going to put up with your bullshit. Erotic romance is not even writing. Like, I don't think it's legit, but, you know, if you want me to help you, you have to do what I say, and, you know, don't give me a bunch of nonsense. And Nora, being Nora, she's very sexual, and she's very much a flirt, and she's very much like seductress, and she is taking a fancy to Zach, and we are hearing her story. So we know that there's some kind of a flirtation with her and Wes, but you don't really know too much about what that is. You know that there's a flirtation with Zach, but then you're also hearing about this guy, Siren. And Siren is clearly somebody from Nora's past. They had broken up 4 years ago, and we learned that Siren is a priest, and we learn that he is also a sadist. And we learn that there is a complicated history between them. And there is, Siren continues to come around, and Siren is gorgeous, commanding, and has a commanding presence about him. And so everybody is really sort of confused as to what this dynamic is and what this dynamic means. And so this is the story. And so it is a love triangle between several characters, and you're trying to sort out what this means, and you're trying to also learn about this world. And as you learn about this world and you hear things, you start to hate certain characters, and you start to really dislike certain characters, because you're just like, what the hell? How can somebody do this? You don't even understand. And when you read certain things, you're just like, I don't understand. I don't get it. And I'm so frustrated, and I'm so upset. But it's fantastic. It is so, so good. And I don't want to tell you too much, because I am going to go through the entire series, but I don't want to tell you too much, because I don't want you to ruin it for you, but I want you to read it. And so the Siren is the first book in the Red Years series, and you need to read this first, and you need to read these first 4 books before you do anything else to really understand what's going on in this world. And I gave this a 5 across the board. It's just all of it. The entire series is a 5 across the board. It's fantastic. It is one of the best, well-written, great narration, you know, fantastic sort of introduction, explanation, you know, character building, development, sexy, fun time, erotic romance that I've ever read. It hits all of the markers, all of the points. It delivers in every way. I have no flaws with these books, no flaws, because it really explains everything to you. And it's an aggregate. It's in the collective. When you read it all the way through, it is just so freaking good that I just want to, I want to dive in, and I need more right now. And I'm so sad that I don't have more of this generation, because there is going to be future generations, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So that's the Siren. So then the next book in the series is The Angel, and The Angel is, you know, I'm going to say this. The Angel is about using BDSM and acceptance and allowing people to be who they are regardless. And The Angel is about a young boy named Michael. And Michael is 16, I believe, at the time. And, you know, he comes into contact with Nora Sutherland via Siren. Siren is the priest. And Michael has tried to commit suicide in the past. And as a result of his suicide attempt, he is struggling to figure out and discover who he is. And that's what this book is about. This is a taboo romance. It is the whole thing is a dark romance in the sense that there are dark under themes. Now, this was read by beta readers and beta readers who were parents. And, you know, it's an interesting dynamic, because, you know, there is some content in here that is discussed around Nora when Nora was 15 years old, and then Michael when Michael is 16 years old. And whether or not a 15-year-old, whether it be Nora or Michael, can consent to a sexual act, and if they have the ability to do that. And what does that look like? And under what circumstances would that be okay? And under what circumstances would we say that you can consent to all these other things, but you can't consent to this? And it brings up that conversation. And so I think this was fantastically done. I think it was really well handled. I think it's a fantastic book, and it brings tears to your eyes, and you get so frustrated and you get so overwhelmed and so happy at the same time that you're just like, there were every one of these books at some point in the story, I was like this, like, oh my God, it was so good. I can't even, and I've just come off of Ammo Jones, and that was like, I was on a high from that already, right? And so usually when I'm on a high from another book and I go into another series, I'm like, oh my gosh, this one's going to suffer as a result. Nope. This hit a crescendo. The Angel is so good. I'm just going to give you like little snippets of it because I don't want to go, like I said, too much into that. And then this is fantastic because we're getting Kingsley's story here. We are also seeing Wes here, and we're seeing more of Nora. And like I said, this is the story that's unfolding. You're starting to understand more. You've seen characters over here. You've heard a little bit about an event that happened that was like a pivotal point, but you didn't know why it was pivotal. Now it's starting to unfold more here, and you're going back in the past, and you're seeing like the early experiences of when they were younger and when they were friends together. And it's told in a split timeline in terms of past, present, and the South. And so you have one character, you have one person over here doing some things. They're going backwards and telling you about the things that happened 20 years ago. And now they're in the current situation now and looking at how those characters are evolving. And just think of it as spokes in a wheel, that Kingsley, Nora, and Soren are the wheel. And all of these spokes that are coming together to that integral part, again, of Kingsley, Nora, and Soren are coming together. But you have to understand the past. You have to understand the present, and you have to understand their individual pasts in order to get that. And we get some of Kingsley's, not all of it, but some of Kingsley's story here. And again, it's just a 5 across the board. It's freaking fantastic. And then over here, we get more of Nora's story in The Mistress, right? And so this is really understanding who she is. There's a lot of, it's hard as well because I don't want to say too much, but it introduces these themes that you're just like, wait, Nora, what are you doing? Wait, I thought that you were doing this. Wait, I don't, so you're really confused by her. And as you get more of the books, you start to understand her better. Although I am going to say I'm never fully going to understand Nora because who she is to me over here as she's introduced. When we get into the White Years, when it all comes together, I understand where she came from, and where she ends up is as much a part of Soren's involvement as it is Kingsley's involvement, as it is who she is internally as a person, but we need all the building blocks to get here. And so The Mistress is more of her story, telling us about who she is and why she does what she does. And I think I understand Kingsley and Soren the most, and I don't understand Nora as much. And, Kingsley, I don't understand a lot either. But at least I can see why Kingsley does what Kingsley does. Kingsley does what Kingsley does over here because he's very highly reactive. He's highly responsive. He overreacts. He gets pissed. He gets angry. And then he does certain things as a result. And, Nora is like, you are going to see me for me. And I am not going to allow you to see me in any other way other than who I am. And you don't see me. But we don't understand this about her until the Queen over there. You really don't. So like I said, this is now the end of the Red Years, right? And so that is the full sort of story of them in the red years. So the red years are like present. So then we have to go back in the past to the white years. And this is the Saint. And in the Saint, we really start to understand how Nora got to be who she is. But in how, this is Eleanor. This is Elle. This is the young girl. This is before she ever became what she is when she's Nora over here. This is Eleanor, okay? And it's going through her Catholic school years. It's going through her, you know, her family history, you know, her first introduction to Siren and all of those dynamics. So again, she's a 15-year-old girl over here, and you're really starting to get the story. But the way that the story comes to you is she's telling someone a story. And as she's telling someone the story of herself, she's going back and telling you about what happened to her. And it is fantastic. It's so, so, so good. So that's the Saint. The King is Kingsley's story. So we're starting to understand what's happening from Kingsley. And this is Kingsley's perspective. And he's telling the story of what happened to him. And he's telling this story to Nora and no, I'm sorry. He visits Zach's wife. So the publisher, so Nora's publisher or an editor, Zach, who we were introduced to in the first book, and we see them throughout, is married to a woman named Reisz. Kingsley goes to Grace's and Zach's home and sits down with her, and he tells her a story, and it's his story, and he does it for a purpose, and that's this book. And this is one of the best books in the series, because now you really start to understand Kingsley, and you really start to say, like, wow, all the things I thought I knew, I didn't know. And it's very different than what I originally thought it was. And it's much more powerful, and it's much more poignant. And oh my gosh, like I didn't know. I didn't know, Kingsley, that you felt like that. I didn't know that you went through that. And you really start to understand in a page here, which I'll come to, where Siren explains what Kingsley was doing during this time and why Siren did what he did. And it like wraps up. It's so fantastic. It's phenomenal, fantastic writing, really. And so that's Kingsley's story. And then Michael's Wings is a novella. And this is about Michael, who we saw in The Angel. And this is his story sort of wrapping up and it's a series of short stories. There are, I think, 3 or 4 short stories. Oh no, I'm sorry. 7 short stories in here, and it's fantastic. It's so fantastic. And that's all I'm going to say about that. It's really good. So then we go into The Virgin, and then this is Eleanor's story. And Eleanor is telling this story, and she's doing it in a way that's shocking, and you don't. Tiffany writes, she leaves you kind of on a cliffhanger a little tiny bit, where she gives you a last little line that you go, what? And then when you open this and you start reading, you're like, what the hell? What the hell happened? What the hell happened? And you don't know what the hell happened, because they're going back in the past and telling you the story of the past. So you don't know what happened to the end of this book. And you're on pins and needles the entire freaking time. You're just like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my shit if I don't know what happened, because it leads you in a direction that you just are like, what the hell? It's so, so good. And so she is telling you then her story of, you know, things that happened during that time. It's fantastic. And then we got the Queen. And the Queen is sort of the culmination of everything. And that is a wrap up of some things. And there are 2 last little things that need to be addressed. And they are addressed here. And they're addressed in a really awesome and fantastic way. And it sort of ties into stuff that happens at the end of Michael's Wings. But we get the story that happens over here, and we get a beautiful culmination of many, many things that have happened. And it's so beautiful and lovely and glorious. And oh my gosh, I'm just over the moon for it. So it was really good. Then we go into a couple of the novellas. I have not gotten through all of the novellas, but they are really more standalones. And those are things that happened early, like 20 years ago, a long time ago, so I can review those later. There's a final book in the series that is the 9th book, and it is the second generation, as I understand it, called The Priest. I am going to read that tomorrow or the end of day today, something like that. So once I read that, I will do that in my other book wrap up. But I'm going to say that this is a little short novella. It's The Confessions. And I love it because it is Siren confessing with his longtime confessor. And it's also Nora's doing her confession as well. And there are some things that are revealed in here that you go, oh my God, that's why XYZ happened in here, in here, in here. Oh my gosh, that's why he did this over here. It really brings it all together. So I think this is an essential piece that you really need to read because it explains some things. You also get an insight and an understanding, a combination, an insight and an understanding into Nora and Nora's thinking. So I think that I respect her much more and I understand her more because she has made some choices that I just went like, I don't know why you did that, but I don't like it. I also love the fact that at the end of this little bind up, if you choose to buy it, you get the Confessions of Tiffany Reisz. And this conversation took place with a book reviewer in January of 2016. It was a Skype chat. And so they get to answer some questions. And there are some questions that are asked in here that I'm like, oh, all right, I get it. I understand. And I understand why Tiffany did what she did with a particular character that's related to both Kingsley and Nora that I didn't really like. And I wish that it didn't go in that direction, but I understand why Tiffany did it. And so she explains it and it's just fantastic. I also love this book as well. This is a short novella about Kingsley and his adventures that he had while he was in the Foreign Legion. And it's a fun story. It's related to the history of O as well as the classical sort of Danish version of Alice in Wonderland, as well as Alice Through the Looking Glass. So it's a fun sort of take on that. And it also, is a very kink heavy, BDSM heavy, dominatrix heavy book, little novella. And I love it. She says, enter at your own risk. It was a fantastic story. I loved it. It was fast paced. It was really, and it's told in, it's present day. It's told in present day in that, again, Siren, Kingsley is telling a story to someone because someone asked them, please tell me a secret that you've never told anybody. And so that's in present day. And so he goes back in his memory and recounts this story. And then this final book is called The Return. And this literally picks up right where this leaves off. However, it does it 22 years in the future. And so in essence, it's the return to the chateau. And so these kind of go together and it's very short and sweet, but it's super cute. I loved it. It was fantastic. And again, it just brought all the things together and all the characters together. And it's amazing. It's really good. And you should read these two together. And so like I said, there are a couple other books in the series, not books, but like little novellas that I have that I'm going to read that relate to stories that were told or in here or characters that we saw, and that they were introduced because they have already been involved in their lives. So we heard about the story or we heard about the event, but we never saw the event. And so Tiffany then wrote about the events later, but because it occurs in time when these books, the red years and the white years, are happening, you have to read all of them first. Then you read that short novella so that you won't be spoiled, if that makes sense. So I am going to say this. This is like I said, an erotic romance taboo story that brings in themes of consent, serious sadomasochism, serious blood play, Catholicism and the Catholic Church, and consent and who can consent to what, under what circumstances, and what are people's hard limits, and whether or not, you can engage in a loving relationship and what that loving relationship looks like. and what that means. My power just went out. And what that means for you and for the people that you love and for people that are involved in your life. And so I am going to say that this is a fantastic series. I highly recommend it. If you have not checked it out, please go and check it out. I will put the extensive reading list in the description box below. I think that, you know, and if you read it in that order, it'll really give you everything and then some. And I hope that you're going to love this series as much as I did, because I just, again, I can't speak highly enough about it. It is fantastic, fantastic. It doesn't get any better than this. So I think that that's all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. And so you know that you can do all of the things, right? You can hit the like button because it really helps me with the YouTube algorithm. You can hit the subscribe button so you can be notified every time I upload a new video, which is generally all over the place, but that's fine. And that's all that I have for today. And if you've read this series, please comment in the comments below and tell me what your thoughts about it, and tell me any concerns that you had about it or what you loved about it, or if you've read any other books by Tiffany Reisz. I know I have another couple of books, and she also did a kind of fun thing. She wrote a book, a little short book called The Red, that's in another series, a trilogy, but she refers to the book as Nora, the writer, wrote The Red, and so it's really interesting. So it's like a little fun and kind of cheeky way to do that. So, but again, if you've read it, please comment below, or if you know anything similar that you think that I would love, please put it in the recommendation box below and let me know, and I'll add it to the TBR, and then at some point I'll get to it, review it, and talk about it, and we can talk about it at that time. All right, so that's all that I have, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!